Welcome back to the stream. If you're watching on live on Twitch, you can join me. My name's Simon. I'm on Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. We're on the European West server. So you do a flyby, pop in and say hello. If you're watching on Twitch, good to see you. And we are currently following the campaign, the 100 days it's called, and we've on our way, just showing the distance between Brussels and Ostend. The sort of stuff we do on here, I like to get quite detailed on. I like to see the sort of terrain, I like to see the distances involved, and we're just going to head to Ostend because that's where one of the main supply routes that Wellington had. And it was one of the reasons why he was so concerned about his right flank, and therefore why he was not urgently committing his troops south to the news that Napoleon had crossed the border from France into Belgium around about Charleroi. This is the map of the area that we've been flying around. We're heading from Brussels to Ostend, and one of the interesting things about the Napoleonic Wars, one of the reasons why I find it so fascinating is because it was one of the first wars where the ordinary soldier had got to a sort of level of literacy that they started to give accounts of their experiences, and one of them was Captain Cavalier Mercier. He is a mere captain. He was the captain of G Troop of the Royal Artillery, and some of his recollections of the Battle of Waterloo are fascinating. He arrives at Ostend, where we're going to now. He arrives on Ostend on the 13th of April. He was dispatched from Harwich. He gets to Ostend. Ostend isn't what you think of it as today. It was known as a dry harbour, which meant that at low tide there was no water. They would literally chuck the horses overboard and the supplies, and then they'd haul them in by rope. That sort of stuff, really. But we're going to go and have a look at that, see if we can see any remains of that sort of stuff. When what I might actually do, to be honest, is it makes more sense, doesn't it, is to actually fly from Ostend back to Brussels. So we'll do that. That will probably make a lot more sense. Ostend. Here we go. Set that as a departure, and we'll fly back to Brussels, and we'll come via Ghent. That makes much more sense. So we're talking about Ostend. This is Ostend then. Bend around here. So very low-lying terrain. There's a lot of unloading on the beaches. The fact that the tide it was tide dependent, meant that any boat that actually got in here had to unload quickly. He says he heads to a place called Sass. He quickly gets told to move on from Ostend. He heads to Ghent first. We're talking here around about April 1815. Now, in what's happening on the other side in France, well, the Napoleon has got to Paris on the 20th of March. He's been sending out his letters to the sovereigns, asking for peace. This is the port of Ostend. And Napoleon can't start building his army up too obviously, because he's sending out letters of peace to the sovereigns of Europe. But on the 6th of April, so we're talking about 8 days before Mercer arrives here, the British knew it was a complete no-go. They had returned the letter that was sent to the Prince Regent unopened, and Napoleon had received this letter back on the 6th of April. So he knew then that the game was up, that there would be no peace, and so he then can be more open about his raising his army. In May time, there's issues involving the Vendée. The Vendée is in revolt, so this ties up a lot of Napoleon's troops. He has to send about 13,000 troops into the area to police it. But what mainly happens is that the way that Napoleon builds up his army is sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul. He is trying to look liberal because his return has been, he's promised to be a bit more liberal, so he can't undo some of the popular things that the Bourbon government had done, which was like banning conscription. But what he does do is he does some sort of maneuverings with the National Guard. He sends the National Guard to defend the fortresses, and then moves the troops from the fortresses away back into his army. He recalls the 1815 conscription who was with the Bourbon government, but many of them had deserted. He recalls them back in as well. And of course he has his guard and all that sort of stuff. So his troops for the army du Nord is around about 120,000. There's a guy who was his name was Cyborn, and he comments that on the amazing energy that Napoleon shows at this time. It's almost like manic energy. He had the same sort of thing in Elba, and he comes back to Paris, and he's absolutely going hammers and tongs trying to get things sorted. But he's in a precarious position, both militarily and politically at home. And what's usually the case, we obviously you see it today, you see it 20 years ago, whatever, is that if you're suffering domestically, then sometimes the best thing to do is to divert the attention of your people to the international stage. So because his letter of peace has been rejected by the Allies, he argues to the people of France, I'm the peaceful person here. They're the ones who are warmongering, and therefore I need more troops. He does a number of things very, very quickly when he gets back. One is, obviously, he puts down this Vendée revolution. He passes several public measures and laws, remodels the civil and military administrations. He restores the army to its previous organization under the imperial regime. He brings many fortresses back to an efficient state. He begins erecting fortification works around Paris and Lyon. He reorganizes, I say, the National Guard to garrison these fortresses. And he also begins to reorganize the manufacture of arms and ammunition. And this, by the way, I think is Bruges. So I believe it's a very beautiful city. I'll just do a quick detour. Now, if you want to see something in particular, just give us a shout and put it in the comments. Even if you're watching on YouTube, I'll read them. If you want to see something specifically in this area about Waterloo, then just put it in the comments, and I will show that. I'm quite happy at the end to go and see other things. The Church of Our Lady, Bruges. I'm sure this is the scene of in Bruges. Very nice. Of course, they've had the photogrammic update to this area. This is one of the reasons why I thought we could do this series now. Okay, that's cool. Bruges, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, so just give us a shout if you want anything to be seen. Yeah, he's trying to reorganize a lot of the stuff. He's trying to clothe a lot of men. He's trying to get the army back together again. Trying not to be unpopular at the same time, so it's difficult. He believes that by I think around about the 1st of June, around about 550,000 men will be under his command, but a lot of them aren't in his field army. They're more available for national defense. Now, the Allies, they're more likely, when they were in Vienna, they're looking possibly to invade France the other way around. They're expecting possibly, or promising around about 750,000 troops by about July time. So you can see that there's almost a race on at the moment to get their armies mobilized. So the only armies that are in position to even attempt to invade France was the armies of Blucher and Wellington. But they would they couldn't launch an attack and without the support of the Austrians and the Russians. So this is the reason why Napoleon decides to go now. The political situation in France is still precarious. He's fearful of people in his government. Fouché, for example, plotting against him. The Allies have already started to approach members of his government about who they thought would be good to rule France if Napoleon wasn't there. And because with the Austrians approaching on the Rhine and the Russians as well come in, he felt time to strike would be now. And of course, it's springtime. It's traditionally, the beginning of the fighting season. It's you do your battles hopefully during the summer. So this puts some more emphasis on going on the attack than waiting to defend. So on the 3rd of May, Blücher and Wellington meet in a town called Tirlemont. Now, I believe it's in the eastern side of Brussels. I can't quite see that. I'll look that up later. But they meet at this town on the 3rd of May, and they agree in that meeting that in the event of a French attack, then each army would come to the other's defense. So they agreed that in the event of a French attack through on the Prussian army via Charleroi, the Prussians would withdraw as slowly as possible. They would stage a major holding action in the Somme-Bref position, and this would allow the Duke to bring his forces down and across to support the Prussians, and then hopefully defeat the French by outnumbering them and outflanking them. Thought I'd just finish this off. This Anton. Hello, Anton. Hiding down here in the bushes. You're in a cargo plane. See, it's a funny old cargo plane. Thought we'd have a look at each of the armies as well. Give you an idea of their strengths. 1815. So the armies of Europe have been at war for about 20 years. So by the time we get to 1815 and the meeting here in Belgium, a lot of the soldiers on both sides have similar kind of experiences and competence. You would say that by 1815, all the armies of Europe were efficient at what they were doing. They knew what to do. You know, there was no major innovations anymore in tactics. The British Army was approximately 35% was British. It should really be called the Anglo-Dutch Army, because 26% of the army was Dutch-Belgian. There was 16% Hanoverian, 9% Brunswick, 9% King's German Legion, and 5% Nassau. Despite the mix of the army, despite some of the things that was said, was particularly by Wellington at times, the actual performance of these troops couldn't really be differentiated along lines of nationality. There was basically good and bad components in each nationality, and in general they mostly all performed the same. Wellington's army was a professional army, and that's a big difference. The soldiers actually signed up for a period of time. The British had always been less inclined to raise a continental army, because, you know, they're an island, so they had a professional army that they could use as a sort of expeditionary kind of in a way. The Dutch, Belgium, Hanoverian, and Brunswick armies, they tended to recruit their troops in a combination of ways, both professionally and conscripts. They also recruited recently discharged troops from the French army on the demobilization of the French army. The demands for troops were pretty high, but the universal conscription method was pretty unpopular, not surprisingly. So a lot of the Dutch, Belgium, Nassau, Hanoverian armies collected their troops by calling up the militia. In Great Britain at the time, there was actual constitutional guarantees in place that meant that any militia couldn't be used outside of the borders of Great Britain. So the actual army of Wellington, the British army of Wellington, were made up of regular troops. And so when you actually do look at the way that the troops behaved, because Wellington's troops were regular troops who were trained and volunteers, or, you know, as much volunteers as you could say, they tended to be a little bit higher quality. Now, regardless of what the behaviour of the Wellington's army was at Waterloo, preceding Waterloo, Wellington had a natural sort of wariness towards these militia elements in his army, and that meant that he would change his tactics accordingly. We're getting some weird effects here. This is Ghent, by the way. So let's just do a tour of Ghent, and I think what I'll do is I will leave the stream here, and we will I will come back after the break, and we will continue our flight down the Seine. This is Ghent, though. This is where the Bourbon monarchy flees to when Napoleon comes back. They initially went out the night before to Lille, and then Lille to Ghent. And so this is another reason why Wellington is doesn't want to give up the Belgium area to Napoleon, and it's almost like a deliberate ploy by the Bourbon monarchy. If they put themselves here and it's on the line of Wellington's supply route, it is almost it's another reason not to give this land back to Napoleon. So here we go. The city of Ghent. So like I say, I think we'll leave this Waterloo bit here. I'm going to take a quick break, grab a glass of water. When we come back, we'll continue our route down the Seine. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, that river fly down, we're flying from the source of the Seine to the sea. You'll find that on the rivers playlist over there. And next time on the Waterloo campaign, we'll go back to Charleroi. We'll go back to before then, and we'll look at the detailed route that Napoleon takes as he comes up on the 15th of June. Now, I know this has been a slow process. I'm a bit of a fan of this area, as you can probably tell. I've got loads and loads of notes, and I'll try and speed up as we get more and more people involved. But sometimes just flying around reminds me of things, and it's good to do. So if you like this sort of stuff, please like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.